toxic positivity. Yeah, I know. Toxic positivity, does that even exist? Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for being part of this. Thank you so much for subscribing, and thank you so much for sharing our videos. And I'm glad you're finding it useful. And if you're here for the first time, this is the Be Voy project. This is where we speak about how to be the best version of yourself. So hopefully you will find value in this. And if you do, if you could kindly subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you do not miss any of our videos when we post them. Okay, so what we're talking about today is the mental toughness. I love this. This is mental toughness without toxic positivity. Yeah, I know. Toxic positivity, does that even exist? In brackets, we're going to call this a balanced resilience because there's one end and the other. I want us to go through this in a bit more detail and see where you stand in those two extremes and see if we can actually help you come somewhere in a healthy spot, so to speak. Not the toxic side, not the pretend mental toughness on the other end. In summary, what we're going to be talking about here is the difference between acting tough and actually being strong, and then also making sure that you do not act tough to a point where you're toxically positive and not actually focusing on what really matters for you to be able to move forward and face the challenges that you have ahead of you. Okay, now let's start with descriptions, like define it. What is this? So mental toughness without toxic positivity, which is also called a balanced resilience. This is the ability to endure, adapt, and navigate through hardships without suppressing your negative emotions or pretending that everything is fine. It also replaces good vibes with realistic optimism, and it also combines action with self-compassion. Now, this is really important, that sometimes you take action and you don't necessarily see immediate results, and we live in this world of immediate gratification. You don't see those results straight away. You beat yourself up so much because why am I not moving forward? Why am I not feeling like the needle is shifting? Why am I seeing other people go forward, but I'm not? And you start beating yourself up. You start questioning the things that you're doing, whether they're working or not. And this is a reminder that you've got to have self-compassion. You have to consider what your situation is, try to stay in your lane, understand what you're doing, what situation you're in, and what you've managed to achieve considering the situation you're in. Because whenever you see other people, ultimately you're only seeing a version, you're only seeing a portion or a tiny bit of what it is that's going on, and you then create the rest of the picture, and you assume that they're going through the exact same things as you and they're moving further forward. But we all know that's not the case. So we need to remember that you compare yourself with who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. So as mentioned earlier on, I want us to sort of go further into the concept of acting tough versus being strong. Okay, so mental toughness is not necessarily the absence of fear or the pain or the negative thoughts that most people go through. It's actually going forward and acting positively despite those realities. Okay, so courage itself, as mentioned before in other videos, the courage is not the absence of fear. It's when you actually act and move forward anyway, in spite of the fear. That's what makes you courageous. And I want to talk about the two different things, acting strong and actually being strong. Okay, so the first one, acting strong, which is the toxic part, was mentioned earlier on, the toxic positivity. Acting strong, this is when you suppress your emotions. This is when you force fake positivity, and it equates vulnerability to weakness. Just being open and speaking personally and being vulnerable to people, it equates that to weakness, and that's the toxic positivity itself. Now, this actually feels personal to me because sometimes I feel like being vulnerable with certain people feels like weakness, and I'm not comfortable sharing my inner feelings. Not to say that you should be vulnerable to everybody that you meet, but then at least identify someone that you can speak to about your real challenges, and vulnerability itself is not necessarily weakness. Okay, so that's the concept of being strong, right? Now, being strong, on the contrary, which is the balanced element, this is acknowledgement of the process, understanding what exactly is going on, absorbing and processing so you actually respond, not react. Okay, it's understanding the process, the reality, and it regulates your nervous system. And this is when you understand that there's spikes. You may have a trigger, or something happens, someone says something or does something, and you have that trigger. There's an immediate emotion that comes through, and acting based on that immediate emotion is what a reaction is. However, understanding that there's a spike that will take place on an emotion, and then just taking your time, pause, think about what's going on, question what just happened. Is it true? Is it not true? Do we have facts or evidence to back up what you've just heard on whether it's true or not? And in that process, that spike comes down. You have the opportunity to actually respond to what's just happened rather than react. Okay, that's the concept of actually being strong. Okay, it focuses on your values, understanding what you find important. And it's not just about winning, okay, and revenging and getting your own back. It's understanding what the bigger picture is. What are your values? Is what you're about to do aligning with your values? Is what you're about to do right now in line with what you class as an integral part of your life? So essentially, the being strong element may look weak on an immediate aspect. When something happens to someone, the strong actually restrain themselves. They have self-control. And then the ones that are actually acting strong are the ones that react, and they look like they're actually ready to pounce on something. Ultimately, this is something that is worth understanding, and understanding what it is that's actually going on for yourself as well, so that you can utilize these skills or this understanding for your own benefit. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Right, now the next part I want us to talk about is, this is information that was shared by psychologists. So experts and psychologists actually came up with this strategy, which is helpful in terms of what it is that we're talking about, and they broke it down into 4 C's. Okay, I'm going to go through each of them now and see if that's something that you can utilize in your own life. The first one is control over chaos, and this is recognizing what is within your power to change and what isn't. And if it is within your power, can you do something about it? If you can, do something about it. If it's not within your power to change, and it's not within your power to change it, then there's nothing you can do about it. Try by all means not to worry about it. This aligns with what's called a serenity prayer, for anyone who's ever heard of it, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And this aligns with what it is that we're talking about here. The second C is commitment over motivation. And we spoke in previous videos about something along these lines, where motivation itself is overrated. People are actually always seeking motivation. You do not want to rely on motivation. It's a booster to keep you going. However, it's not what we rely on a daily basis. We rely on discipline. We rely on commitment. No matter how I feel, I need to do X, Y, Z. Align it with your goals, align with your values, and there's something that you have to do despite how it is that you feel. So commitment over motivation. Number 3, challenge as data. So the challenges themselves, use them as data for yourself to actually utilize within your growth, within your personal development. So whenever you actually have setbacks or personal failures, you don't see them as setbacks or personal failures. You see them as data, information that you can use to try to actually improve. Let them highlight to you where your weaknesses are, so that you can draw on it and pick up that information and work on it so that you can strengthen more and more. And this is a concept of also voluntarily taking on challenges that are a little bit beyond you, so that you can strengthen yourself, so that you can identify where your weaknesses are and actually turn them into strengths. And this also builds a capacity for involuntary failures or involuntary hardships. Okay, so there's certain parts of your life where it just happens to you. Okay, there's things that just happen to you, the things that come to you, the challenges that come your way that you're not prepared for. So if you actually get used to voluntarily taking on challenges and stepping out of your comfort zone, what you do is you build your strength, you build your capacity for any of the challenges that you don't choose, the challenges that are involuntary. So it builds your capacity for being able to handle that. Okay, hope that makes sense. The 4th C, the last one, is confidence and evidence. it's very important that you actually track what you've managed to achieve over the period of time that you want to look at. Actually track what you have achieved, your actual capabilities, not arrogance. Don't be arrogant about the things that you have achieved or the things that you haven't achieved. You track all of the evidence on what you have actually managed to achieve and use that to build your confidence. Now, you want to acknowledge what you have handled. Acknowledge everything that you have actually handled. This helps you combat any of those situations where you're starting to lack confidence because you're trying something new that you've never tried before. Look at what you have actually managed to achieve. This helps you face the new challenges. So acknowledge when you've handled a difficult situation, and remember that self-compassion is far better than self-criticism. And the theme here is about self-compassion. A lot of us actually beat ourselves up over and over again about the things that we class as failures, which is just data, as we mentioned. Pick up that information, see what it is that you can learn about it, and go again. And be self-compassionate by looking at what it is that you have achieved, because you have achieved quite a lot. Look at what you've achieved. I would recommend you actually write things down. It's very important to journal the things that you have achieved. Look at yourself as if it's someone that you actually taking care of. Jot down on a daily basis, even if it's just one thing that you've managed to achieve in that day, and write these things down so that you can pat yourself on the back to keep yourself going. And on the days that you question yourself and you criticize yourself, you look at everything that you wrote down. What you'll find is you start challenging that thought process, that negative voice that you're hearing inside you, and question on whether it's actually true or not. And based on evidence that you're reading through, you'll find yourself thinking, actually, hold on, I'm not that bad. Let's give it a try. Let's try these new challenges. Let's try all of these elements that we're worried about and step out of our comfort zone. Okay? That's what we've got for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as mentioned before, please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so we can spread the information to as many people as possible. Really appreciate your support, guys. Take care, and I'll see you again next time.